Well, hey everybody, welcome back to another product review. If you are a modern modeler, you're probably familiar with the Scale Trains ES44ACs, and we have 5 of the most recent releases, most notably, at least to me, the CPKC schemes. Now, it wasn't long ago that Canadian Pacific merged with Kansas City Southern, and so that merger resulted in the CPKC, and it was not too long ago in the hobby that we had to wait years for new models to release. Sometimes they would release by brass, and they would come out years after the locomotives would hit the rails. Well, this merger is less than 2 years old. It occurred April 14th, 2023, and we're recording this on March 4th, 2025, so less than 2 years ago that came out. And here we have a model already. Matter of fact, the actual prototypes, these two ES44ACs, were even later than that date. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick look at these models. Since we've done extensive testing, we'll focus primarily on the paint schemes and some of the differences because we've reviewed the ES44ACs so many times. I'll check the pull test and let you know if anything's changed, but we'll keep a lot of that off screen as we focus mostly on the schemes. So let's get started on the review of the Scale Trains ES44AC GE Locomotive and HO Scale Rivet Counter Edition, starting right now. And the first thing to note before we get into the boxes are the different box types themselves, with the ES44AC schematic on here, but you have the CSX Heritage Scheme box, which has all of the different heralds, railroad heralds for the CSX Heritage schemes. And then the CPKC box has its own logo and color scheme there. So it's nice that they're doing this with the boxes. It's a nice little sharp addition for people like me that have a little more shelf time than run time sometimes. But I just wanted to make a note of these box types here. On the back, you still have a write-up of the history and features of the locomotive and some of the Scale Trains rivet counter details as well. All right, we're going to unbox the CPKC version. As you can see there on the front, the US, Canada, and Mexico flag, which is on the locomotive as well. ES44 manual here that features 15 pages of information, functions, configuration variables, maintenance, operating in DC and DCC, cleaning, etc. Even information about the prototype. With the star of the show, obviously the model here, and it comes in a foam surround with a blister plastic packaging. You see a little baggie here that includes the wheel bearing caps in case they come out, because you have moving wheel bearings so that roll. Locomotive pops out like that. You want to make sure those truck immobilizers stay put. And we'll take out the handrails and zoom in and look at some of the details of this CPKC locomotive. 9375 here is all out of the box, and I also have 4805 tucked behind it because I do want to point out some differences that you may or may not notice. The CPKC locomotives in their past had different backgrounds, so the 4805 does not have the rear ditch lights where the 9375 does, so that's one thing that I want to point out as we look at these models. But we'll zoom in, point out the regular things that we try to cover, including antennas that are going to be specific to the road name and road number in a lot of cases. Sand filler hatches, grab irons, which are a nice white contrast on that red. CPKC on the front. Handrails with a silver colored stanchion chain, safety chain there on the front. You got the anti-climber with ditch lights above it. MU receptacle. MU hose below with coupler cut lever. The airline hose and brake line hoses with silver tipped ends there on the front of the snowplow as well, with the snowplow window. On the side you can see the jacking pad, truck detail including that roller bearing cap and spring detail, sight glass for the fuel tank including emergency shutoff buttons. You've got your dynamic brake fan grills, separately applied grabs all throughout this locomotive, a nice window tint to this as well. I think they've really perfected that. And along the side you've got compartment detail, the CPKC logo including the golden beaver herald, that nice stripe there, which I think is a very nice paint scheme, by the way. You do have truck chain detail, which is fixed and molded. It's not actual chain, but it facilitates the removal of the shell because this chain will separate without you having to detach anything. And you can see the brake and wheel detail as well, including those little actuator areas here where that's going to engage with the truck brake if needed. You got the brake wheel back here, radiator fan grill area, and there is your rear set of ditch lights on 9375. Spare knuckle couplers, or coupler knuckles, I always say that backwards. Silver tipped end and a coupler there as well. So these are LED light equipped. You can see the handrails from this view are pretty straight. You've got treaded walkway, different horn configurations as well. It appears on the 9375 there's going to be a 3-chime, 4-chime horn. Sorry about that. And on the 4805 there is a different horn altogether. And those actually sound different on the sound file. You can even see just the simple differences like the red and silver versus, with the red horn versus the silver horn there. So a little hard to see the horn detail. Now what I am going to do is go ahead and put these right next to each other facing the same direction now that we've covered kind of both sides. But as you can see, the front has some differences as well, like the brake line and air line accessory air hose position. You only have one on that side, 2 on that one, and that is a detail difference. You got that really fine windshield wiper detail as well. Sunshades on one, on this 4805, 9375 does not have sunshades. That's not an accident. That's also a prototype difference. You've got the dynamic brake grill, fan grill configuration, 2 to the right here, 3 on that rear one you can see poking out above, and even some conduit running on that antenna there. You can see that separately applied as well, and that's on both of these units also. And antenna differences, as you can see, you have that little separate antenna piece there on the front of the one on the rear here. That little dot right there is a separate antenna, different type of antenna. So those are some spotting feature differences along with a lot of stuff I'm not a professional enough to know or keep track of. You've got that rear sand filler hatch as well. So really nice detailed. You even have a nice pad printed area on the back here on the edge of the drop step. So they really spared no expense on covering all the details, including all the warning labels and such on these locomotives. Now, before we move on to the CSX Heritage Units and the 3 that were released in this batch of ES44ACs, I do want to make a note about the CPKC ES44s. I had one unit. It was number 9375 that had a missing step in the front. And I usually unbox these live on camera, but in this case I was playing with them a little early, got them a little early, but knew I didn't have any plans for a review for a while, so I showed a picture on my Facebook, and a viewer noticed a step missing, so I contacted Scale-Trains and just asked for a step. They went ahead and replaced the whole locomotive with their great customer service very quickly. So the locomotive has been replaced and there is no missing step. So obviously look for broken parts. That can be very much a crapshoot about an angry UPS or FedEx or post office guy. Part missed at the factory, you know, things like that happen on these detailed parts, but as part of a thorough review, I do want to let you know about that. Also, the same group of viewers that noticed that mentioned what was a slight kind of downslope of the pilot on these ES44ACs. I've looked at this with a straight edge, and I'm not noticing much, but I will have the Runbys at track level so you can see for yourself, you know, if you want to analyze it and determine if that is something that is a deal breaker for you. But I'm not noticing much of one in this case. So there are some that have like a slight angle, very, very slight angle. I had to put like a straight line on an editing software to even see that. I had mentioned that this is kind of the definitive GEVO. I think they've perfected GEVOs, and I got grief about that because of this pilot issue on some of these. So I did want to make sure you're aware of that and let that factor into your decision making. And I will give you the best angle possible on the Runbys for you to determine that for yourself. On to the CSX Heritage Units. This is the second batch of 3. The first batch was 5. So that's a total of 8. And then there are 7 more coming in the summer. I believe July, it'll be 15. And then you'll have more announced, I'm guessing, in the future. It would only make sense for them to finish off the series, even though nothing official has come out regarding that. But I did want to show you, forgot a handrail protector there, just the differences and the schemes here. So we'll start with L&N number 1850, a CSX Heritage Unit, as I pull these other 2 away. And 1850 here has that nice L&N scheme. You've got the diagonal stripe and separation where the locomotive essentially becomes modern on the front with the CSX nose. You can see that window tent detail all the way through. Separately applied antenna configuration, your dynamic brake fan grills along the side, all that compartment detail. And that brake chain really snaps because it's contrasting color, unlike on the CSX version. So they're doing road name, road number specific detail down to the horn and even the sound file. Now, one thing I didn't mention on the other units, the CPKC units, is each wheel has a rust colored face, which I believe this is the first manufacturer to do that. So you don't have to weather your wheels. You can also see the difference in the trucks there versus the CPKC. I'm having a hard time getting used to saying that. And you can see the bracing contrast in the back of the radiator fan grill area, along with the radiator fan housing that shows through that semi-transparent radiator fan grill area back here. And you've got your FRA mandated reflective striping, not actually reflective, but you can see that contrasting with that yellow sill right around the jacking pad area here. You can see that brake chain detail as well on the truck area. So that's a 360 of the L&N very quickly. Let's move on to the other 2. Here's Atlantic Coastline, that diagonal stripe where the locomotive becomes modern on the nose. It's a little less visible there with it kind of fading into this color paint scheme, but you see Atlantic Coastline along the sides. Again, you're going to have horn specific detail and all those different road name specific details. So you're going to have different variations, some of which we'll catch, a lot of which we won't. But I've got to kind of hurry up this 360 because we still have a lot to cover. But as you can see, this is your Atlantic Coastline version here, even with the little herald back on the rear of the radiator fan area on the rear of the locomotive. There you have that. And last but not least, we have Monon, CSX number 1897. A lot of the same details we talked about, but I just want to give you a quick 360. There's going to be stuff that I miss in the variation differences, so be sure to catch that. For you railroad buffs, you'll be able to catch all of the differences between the variations, unlike me. It almost pays to be a rail fan as well as a modeler, because you're going to have more knowledge than I would, because I'm mostly a modeler with very little rail fan experience. I do a rail fan occasionally just to get inspiration for what I'm modeling, but not as much as some of the dedicated rail fans would have. There is a view, 360 view of the Monon, CSX number 1897. We're going to show you CPKC number 4805 first, because the first thing I want to demonstrate is the difference in horn on the sound files. That's how specific Scale Trains is getting. But we'll do startup first, which is F8 for the ESU LOKSound decoder, which these are equipped with. We've talked about lighting before, so it's going to be equipped with step lighting in between the ditch lights, headlight, which is LED, and your lit number boards along with the ground effect lights too. If you want to see that in action, more detail, you can check out the full review of the ES44AH. Here's the bell. And the horn. Now this ESU decoder automatically rings the bell with the horn being activated with F2. The ditch lights stay steady, which is correct for the prototype. Now keep that horn in mind, because I'm about to blow the horn on the other version, so I'll blow it real quick here on 4805, and then with the magic of editing, we'll blow it on the other one in the same spot, or close to. Here's the 9375 horn. As you can see, rear lighting as well, including the ditch lights. Also steady when the horn blows. Checking top speed on the AccuTrack 2 speedometer. 85 scale miles per hour. Now the stars of the show are the CSX Heritage Units. I've got all three of the ones from this release lined up. What we're going to do is a little bit of multitasking. And I'm going to zoom out so you can see the reading on the AccuTrack 2 speedometer. We'll get this set a little closer. We're going to check the crawl at 1 speed step on these. There's a lurch at 1 speed step. We're trying to see mostly the smoothness of the drive mixed with what the first speed step registers in scale miles per hour. We saw the top speed. Now the low speed is going to be 0.9 scale miles per hour. So now we'll remove that. We'll keep increasing the NCE Pro Cab until we hit smooth operation. A little too fast there. 3, we get smoothed out a little more. 4, I see the lurching pretty much going away. They're not perfectly speed matched because the distances are closing in between some of the locomotives. But 4 and 5 seems to be completely smoothed out there in terms of lurching. One quick note about the CSX versions: when you blow the horn, you have oscillating ditch lights, because that's correct for CSX, where CPKC has the steady ditch lights like UP. Different roads, different ditch lights configurations, whether it's oscillating on the horn or solid on the horn. So good job from Scale Trains on getting that correct as well. You also have capacitors in these, so I can move this about, reposition on the track as necessary, not have any track power interruptions or interruptions to the locomotive. So Sitting down on a switch is a bad idea because you can get a short if not sitting down properly, but you saw how I picked that locomotive up. There's a capacitor in there holding a power reserve in case you have dirty track without enough feeders, etc. Well, that's going to wrap up our look at the ES44AC. Still, in my opinion, after this review, the most well overall executed locomotive out of all the ES44ACs produced. No model is perfect, and we mentioned having a staircase step broken that was replaced with Skeltrain's quick customer service. And we also mentioned some people's concern about drooping pilots, even though I'm not seeing much, maybe very slight on one or two of the models. But I'm going to leave you with a run by, exactly track side even, so you can be the judge of yourself of these models, including that basically straight line of the side view of the model. So we'll see you next time right here on the channel. Take care.